We're brought to you by JCPenney. Guys, at JCPenney, you can find all the great looks, whether you're in the office or on the go. Raise your game with Collection by Michael Strahan, or relax and look good on the weekend with MSX by Michael Strahan, exclusively at JCPenney. You heard right. That stylish clothing line from Sack King, 7-time Pro Bowler and Super Bowl champion, Michael Strahan. And you know he's always dressed to perfection. So hurry in, get your look today. JCPenney, style and value for all.
Hey, college football fans, Kirk Herbstreit here. Whether you're home gating or tailgating this season, score big on Game Day Eats with Eckridge Smoked Sausage. And now you can enter the 2019 Road to the National Championship sweepstakes. You can join me at the College Football Playoff National Championship in Santa Clara, California for a chance to throw to win $1 million. To enter and learn more, visit EckridgeFootball.com. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Sweepstakes ends 12/20/18. Contest rules online.
This is the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo. ESPN Radio, ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here with you. And the first thing I noticed, guys, when I turned on the Monday Night Football game last night, there were a lot of Khalil Mack jerseys in the stands.
Yeah. That's worked out pretty well for him. That defense, I know we're going to talk about the lack of offense there and Mitch Trubisky and where that's going to go, but this defense, and there are years when, in both rooms, for people to understand, when you go in an offensive room and a defensive room, there's always that big board of goals that you try and hit every week.
Squad goals.
And for defense, turnovers is always one of them. And turnovers is one of those things where sometimes you try and do, but sometimes they just kind of happen for you. Happened a few years ago for the Bears. It's happening this year for the Bears as well, with turnovers, certainly with sacks, having, as we'll get into, 10 in the first 2 games. But it's all kind of rolling right for that defense right now. They're doing really, really well.
It is, and you make a lot of your own luck,
right,
certainly in those situations. Downfield, when you see guys stripped in scrums down the field, those are the skills that you teach in practice. But in situations like sacking the quarterback, you give yourself more chances when you're around the quarterback as much as these guys are. And part of that has certainly been, as Trey mentioned, the Khalil Mack effect on this defense.
And that's the most important thing, and we'll get into it in great detail later. It's not just what Mack is doing, it's what he's allowing everybody else to do. That is really the unwritten headline here that a lot of people watching the game probably don't understand. And the Bears defense is what everybody's talking about. Brought to you by Lowe's. Pros in the know start with Lowe's. Go to lowesforpros.com for details. We'll get into the Bears-Seahawks game and what it means, quite frankly, for both teams going forward, and maybe a third party that might have been involved with one of those teams in a trade for Monday Night Football. We'll get into all of that, but first let's start, as we always do, with what's trending, and give it up for Joe Peterson.
Jock Peterson,
as I said, launched 2 home runs and tracked down a pair of potential extra base hits on defense as the Dodgers are back in first place in the NL West with an 8-2 win over the Rockies.
Yeah, a couple more games between these two and in the back and forth that's going on. But Jock Peterson defensively played well, obviously with the home runs, offensively as well. But so they're 12 games more, 2 against each other here, and then 10 against other opponents for both of them. As I said, going down to the end and just the race that's going to go on, but you just look for the individual. We're going to get into a couple other individual performances when the lights are shining brightest now to make it into the playoffs, whether it's winning the division, whether it's getting to the wild card, or being on the outside looking in. You're looking for those individual performances, and we're getting them.
You certainly are getting them, and also getting individual setbacks. Trevor Story,
that hurts.
Tough one for the Rockies. Tweaked his elbow last night in the first inning, and then aggravated on a swing in the 4th inning. So tests coming up, test today, Tuesday, to determine the severity of that right now, which is going to be huge for them because you want to talk about how tight these races are. So they drop a half game behind the Dodgers in the division, which also puts them a half game behind the Cardinals for the second spot in the NL wild card. So that's how tightly bunched it is on that end. We've talked a lot about certainly the AL races, but on the NL on that side, as tightly packed as you can get. And losing Trevor Story, we know what he's done, especially being a home run hitter in the last couple of seasons, would be pretty devastating this time of season.
It is amazing how things swing quickly. It was just a couple of days ago they were sitting pretty atop the division, and now they're on the outside looking in with not much time left in the Major League Baseball season. Well, moving on, you mentioned the Milwaukee Brewers and where they sit again. Right now they hold the top spot in the National League in the wild card race, and they continue to do amazing things, including one player is specifically Christian Yelich.
Here it is. Yelich knocks one to the gap in right center. This could be the one. He's going to be held to a double. He's trying for three. He's going to do it. Get down. He's in there. Wow. They're on their feet here. So are we. Wow.
That's the great Bob Uecker on WTMJ. Awesome. Of course, what he didn't say there is he hit for the cycle.
Yeah,
again.
I think he front-ended that. Yes. We just didn't have that in there.
We are the pettiest show.
Yeah, we are.
But
exactly.
again, Yelich became the first player in Major League history to hit for the cycle against the same team twice in one season. But more importantly than that, he's just the fifth player in Major League history with multiple cycles in the same season.
I love the people he's joined.
These are the greatest things in the world.
And we're going to get more info on these guys.
Yes, we are.
Let's
it's
about to get really old in here, isn't it?
Let's just wash over the oldness.
Get ready,
right
Cliff.
Now. Cliff, get ready.
We're going to start from the most recent. Aaron Hill in 2012.
Former Blue Jay.
Babe Herman, 1931. 1887, Tip O'Neill, not that Tip O'Neill.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And in 1883, Long John Riley. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
This is why old-time baseball stuff is awesome. Because you go to the 80s, and Long John Riley, Tip O'Neill, and not that Babe from the 30s, but the other Babe, Babe Herman.
Well, I think that's the first marker that you're really getting into age territory is when you just have guys named Babe again. It's one of those names that just only pops up once black and white starts to be the modus operandum of anything you're viewing.
Just awesome. It's just awesome. So we're going to get a bunch of info, especially on the Tip O'Neill, not that Tip O'Neill, and Long John Riley.
As we've done before with Hoop, and a couple of other players.
We love doing this.
We are all in on we need to know more about Long John Riley.
So Google's for.
That's what our researcher Harrison is for. Use the Google machine.
Yeah, use the Google. Use that Google thing.
We are ready to do that because we want to know as much as we possibly can on this show.
But by the way, good job out of Christian Yelich. We kind of lost him in the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That happened too.
Who's been a monster since the All-Star break, right? Like basically ranked first or second in almost any meaningful category. Slugging percentage, hits, batting average, on base plus slugging, 50 RBIs since the All-Star break. Like the dude's been a juggernaut, and this Milwaukee Brewers team has just been hawking down the Cubs.
It has.
The Cubs have just been watching them fearfully in their rearview mirror. I think they're 3 games up in the wild card race right now.
Yeah, they are.
But,
and then
2.5 behind the Cubs.
And really, the National League's all we have.
Yes.
As far as races anymore. Everything's over in the American League. Even the wild card. We know it's going to be the Yankees and Oakland. We just don't know where that game is going to be played at this point. The divisions are basically done.
By the way, Yelich's big performance, something he's been doing, as you said, since the All-Star break, is brought to you by Scott's. Feed your lawn again this fall for a stronger yard now and next spring. We continue. Okay, this is why I love Mike Zimmer as a head coach.
And this is also why you just understand that while football is a game, football is a business.
Yes, it is.
When decisions are made, it's a business.
A lot of people were wondering whether or not they were going to cut Daniel Carlson, their kicker, after he missed 3 field goals against Green Bay. Yeah, they are. And this is exactly how the decision went down with Mike Zimmer when he was asked about what's he going to do with this kicker.
What went into the decision today to let Daniel Carlson go?
Did you see the game?
Was it an easy decision?
Yeah, pretty easy.
So
I love the guy. I love Zimmer. Everybody that's played for him loves him. He is an old school, no nonsense, no BS coach, and that sums it up. Did you see the game? Pretty easy decision.
Yeah, there's talking around something and trying not to be, come across as so blunt, and try and spin it. And then there's that way, which is just about as basic as it can. We all knew it was going to happen. And he basically said, yeah, it's a pretty easy decision to make.
Mike Zimmer's got to be a text message breakup guy. Like, that level of savagery is reserved for people who don't even have the common decency to just meet you in person and do it. He just wants to get it over with as quickly. We all know this is coming to an end. For Daniel Carlson, it's tough, a rookie, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a tough way to get your NFL career started. We've seen plenty of kickers rebound and get other chances. But Minnesota's messed around with bad kicking for too long for them to really have to deal with this for much longer. And they remedied that decision pretty easily.
They did. The second most accurate kicker in the history of the NFL now has a job. That is Dan Bailey. Source telling our Adam Schefter that he's going to sign with them. And here's the interesting thing, okay? let's be honest about what you see. Because Dan Bailey reportedly turned down 4 offers
before this weekend
happened. Yeah. So if you turned down 4 offers, you knew he was never going to go to Cleveland because they are also dismissed. They've also dismissed their kicker. But basically, if you're Dan Bailey, let me get this straight. I got a team with a great defense, a multifaceted offense that plays their home games indoors, and they've already been to Green Bay.
Yeah.
This is a good situation for me.
It's a great and
really good situation.
That was the beauty of his position, and a lot of people wonder why he got cut. Had the injury, nicked up a little bit, missed some kicks, and it was a big price tag as well.
$3.4 million.
So this is where the Cowboys decided they were going to kind of save a little bit, and okay, we'll see how that one works out for you.
Yeah. But again, if I'm a Viking fan, I really like this move.
Yep.
Great pickup for them. Should eliminate a number of those ills. But you're right. A cold reminder, the business side. I saw you treat it, Trey, too. Zane Gonzalez from the Browns had been apparently kicking with a bit of a groin injury that day.
Schefter reported that he's been working through a groin injury, although Hugh Jackson in the most Browns thing ever said, I was not aware of any groin injury. So, then this is like, now you wonder, because does that information come from an agent saying, hey, this is what was going on?
Yeah.
But again, there just seems to be a confluence of issues going around with the Cleveland Browns.
I will say that when you're young and you're looking for a job and trying to have a job, sometimes you will not report an injury.
Correct. That's
true.
So,
I mean, I know I've been down that road.
No, yeah.
So where you just not say anything, you will not go into the training room because you go in there, it's on a report and that the coach sees.
Yes.
So if he went in there for treatment, then the coach is flat out lying.
Right.
Because then it would be on a report.
Yeah.
But if you don't go in there at all and you try and I say, I'm not going in that training room, then a coach cannot know.
And we brought this up before, like, with a superstar player has a concussion, he's going to take himself out of the game. But if you're a gunner on the punt squad, are you going to go in there?
Not doing it, not saying a word.
Be replaced. So there's a lot of variables in that situation. And speaking of the Cleveland Browns, they have dealt wide receiver Josh Gordon to, of course, the New England Patriots. In return, they get a 5th-round pick, while the Pats will also get a 7th-round pick from the Browns if Gordon is not active for 10 games. League sources telling ESPN's Adam Schefter. Look, there's a ton to get into here, and we will get into it this morning. But at the end of the day, this is about a low risk possible for the New England Patriots with the potential to be a very, very high reward. Josh Gordon has the chance to be one of the top 5 receivers in football. And if he doesn't, it costs them next to nothing. And the other part of it is, if it doesn't work out, it's not going to kill that locker room because everybody knows there's only one way this goes anyway, and the program goes on with or without you.
Oh, it's exactly right. This is New England. They pass out draft picks like candy.
Yep.
I mean, they use that just as, here's some candy, here's a 3rd rounder, here's a 5th rounder, we'll get back a 7th rounder, we'll use that again, we'll probably trade that one away. No problem. And they'll take the chance. And this is a position they've taken the most chances on. I think this is a 22nd or 23rd, I think, since July transaction at the wide receiver position for them. And by the way, it's not like they're unbelievably productive there. Since 2002, they've had 5.
25, actually.
25. Yeah. So 25. So since 2002, they've had 5 1,000-yard receiving seasons. That's it. 3 of those times came from traded players. Wes Welker, Randy Moss, and Brandon Cooks. And where's Brandon Cooks now?
He's with the Rams.
He's gone. So 3 times that has happened. So you bring a guy in a trade. We know the talent level this guy has. But to your point, Trey, and I agree that if it doesn't work out, he's gone, and you just move on.
Because they trust Tom Brady. Like, you've got everything about the Patriots situation is an anomaly. Like, you can't. That's why we look at every move they make as the right move, because they can erase every wrong part of it by having Tom Brady and Bill Belichick in a way that no one else can. Their situation is so unique that they know this could supercharge them. I mean, Tom Brady, as great as he is, his best season still came when Randy Moss was there. Like, it's not a secret. You get better when you have better guys to throw to. But you can make it work at a Super Bowl level without him, too. They'll get Julian Edelman back after 4 weeks and still be a darn good offense with him and Gronk, but this has a chance to take them to a place that would feel borderline unfair.
Look, at the end of the day, the list of people that he's taken chances are some have worked, some haven't. Rodney Harrison was considered to be a controversial player when he traded for him. That worked out. Corey Dillon was supposed to be a controversial player, the running back out of Cincinnati. That worked out. He took a flyer on Albert Haynesworth.
Yep.
Didn't work out, but it didn't cost him anything. Took a flyer on Ocho Cinco. Ocho Cinco never really grasped the offense, and that year, without him doing much, they actually went to the Super Bowl. They lost that Super Bowl to the Giants, the second one they would lose, Super Bowl 46 in Indy. But it didn't, nothing collapsed.
Not
the room.
detrimental.
It's not going to hurt them. We'll get into their draft picks in 2019 a little bit later, and why this all works out, hear from other people what they think about the trade. But then there's the Monday night game we got to talk about, guys. And again, the Bears finally got their first win of the season, 24-17. So on the plus side, that defense led by, Khalil Mack continues to make all kinds of plays. It wasn't a Prince Amukamara pick six that actually sealed the game late. But at the end of the day, Matt Nagy, the head coach, who's known for his offense, really loving what he's seen with that defense.
I thought it was pretty neat that after sudden change with 2 interceptions, we got 2 3-and-outs by the defense. That's awesome. There's not a lot of teams in the NFL that have, I think, that mentality and that where our defense is playing right now. The last 2 games, now we had the difficulties there in the third and fourth quarter against Green Bay, but for the most part right now, our defense is playing fast. They're flying around. And so they helped us out offensively. They helped the offense out. There's going to be times where the offense is going to help the defense out. So that's just the way it goes. In the end, the only thing that matters is that W. That's it.
Oh, he's right about that. And listen, the reason they're getting that W and maybe should have gotten the W week 1 against Green Bay is because of that defense.
Listen, right now it is about the defense for them. They have that going on. Again, 2 touchdowns on defense. Khalil Mack has the one. Prince Amukamara got a pick 6 last night. The only team in the NFL that has 2. So they're forcing turnovers. They're getting sacks. They have 10. Only team with 10 right now. That's the best by this team since '87 when they started with 13 in the 2 first games. The issue here is going to be the offense, Mike. I mean, without question. You look at Mitchell Trubisky, the second half, they really shortened the passes up. And he took some passes down the field early on in the game. There were some overthrows. He had some picks as well. He's still struggling a bit. I still overall like him, but let's see where this goes with Nagy with all these all those formations they run. It would drive me nuts, quite honestly, but they're incredible amount of formations. But more is going to have to come from Mitch Trubisky, and Nagy is trying to help him out a bit with the short passes, tons of short passes in the second half. Not at this point going to be a juggernaut offense. 3 top receivers, all new guys, Trey Burton, Allen Robinson, and Tyler Gabriel. So you're still working with that. Taylor Gabriel. So you're still working with that crew. But I don't think it's going to be a juggernaut offense by any stretch. So they need a good controlled offense, and that defense needs to keep doing what they're doing.
Well, I mean, Mitch Trubisky is what's holding back the offense. Yep. It's a young quarterback who's not yet ready to have the keys to all that's handed to him. And Matt Nagy, the finesse god last night, the stuff that he was able to do to try and help him out, the Andy Reid coaching tree has proved itself so adept at doing this. Phenomenal. Because what we saw last night was eerily reminiscent. I remember watching early the first couple of games of Carson Wentz with Doug Peterson in Philadelphia when it was a lot of things, spread wide formations, short, easy throws to get him in motion, and then occasionally let him do the thing, because the one thing that does jump off the page, Mitch Trubisky is not he is a great athlete.
Yes, he is.
When he breaks contain, when he moves up in the pocket,
except for that one play where he bounced it outside, so the run was on.
Yeah, that was a bad run. That was a bad run. That was a planned run.
That was assuming too much of his athletic ability. But the point is, you can build those plays in the way they did. You throw 2 tight ends out there to block for him because you believe in him as a runner. When he goes up in the pocket, you see him make defenders miss in a way that not a lot of quarterbacks can do. And when the play breaks down was some of when he was at his best. But the rest of it has to get better, because if it did in a hurry, this would be a team that could get a little more talk in this division in particular than it's going to with him at this current pace.
Well, let's talk about that then for a second, because through 2 games, the offense has produced 16 and 17 points because they've gotten a defensive score in each of their first 2 games. This is not year 1 for Mitchell Trubisky. It is year 1 with Matt Nagy. It is year 2 for him. When do we need to start seeing the kind of things, to your point, that we've seen Carson Wentz take in year 2 with this situation? Because you're right. This offense should be better, and it's being held back because things are being missed from the quarterback position.
Well, I think the Eagles are a more adept comparison than maybe some of the other instances that we've seen, because we didn't exactly look at that Eagles team and say, outside of Zach Ertz, that's one that's flush with offensive weapons. It's got very good players in it, and I think Alshon Jeffrey, Allen Robinson, those are kind of similar comps. Trey Burton's a guy that came from that system. Right. The running back group, you could argue, is better in Chicago with Tariq Cohen and
Without
Jordan Howard.
I agree.
And what those 2 offered. I mean, the Eagles, the Chicago Bears offensive line looked really good too last night. I think the quarter mark of the season, that's where we look for a lot of these things right, especially in this new CBA where one of the things that I'm sure Matt Nagy, like other coaches, lament is he doesn't have as much time on the field with his quarterback as he'd like. And so that quarter mark of the season in this new offense, I think is going to be very telling.
One of the differences here is they had a lead. So you protect the lead a bit. You look at the 34 passes, 29 of them traveled within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. In the second half, he averaged, 4.4 air yards per attempt. You had a lead. issue is going to be when they're behind, and if Mitch has to throw them back into it, and they got to throw it down the field a little more. And right now, he's struggling right there. So Nagy can protect him in some instances, but at some point he's going to have to let the ball go, especially if they're coming from behind.
And Nagy alluded to that point after the game, saying, "Look, we're going to go as far as Mitch is going to take us."
I don't care if he threw 4 picks in the first half. I'm not going to change. I'm going to have ultimate trust in him and continuing to lead this offense. And so I've told him that from the start. And so I'll never back away from that. And so what I'll do is I'll try to protect him at times in certain ways, but he won't know when I'm protecting him. It'll be by me doing it my own way. He's going to cut it loose, and if he starts getting into a shell, then we all get into a shell.
And I think that's a really interesting way to look at it, is to try and disguise it even from his quarterback, because you saw they took chances down the field.
They did.
But some of those didn't always work out. 2 interceptions last night. It should have been an easy third one that Seattle dropped
in the end zone.
Right
when
there.
He forced that one to the end zone, should have been a third. You're
and
right.
that would have been a devastating spot that could have changed the tide in a game where, as much as Seattle looked like they were getting dominated, they were never out of it.
No, they weren't. And listen, that's the thing. I was watching that first half, and I'm like, it's 10-3. I feel like they should be up 21-3. And they never were able to pay it off.
I kept waiting for put that game away. And next week, they have the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Maybe the worst team in the NFL.
Yeah.
So everybody's going to look positively and say this should go well for them. But, let's see that offense get on track a little more.
And if we're talking about the game and the great performance by the defense, you have to bring it up. Khalil Mack through 2 games, 2 sacks.
Yep.
The entire Raiders team through 2 games, 2 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
The Raiders have forced 1 turnover this season. Khalil Mack by his lone self has 2 turnovers this season. And he had a forced fumble last night.
Yeah.
It's getting harder and harder to see that as, that was a good idea.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out.
I think we're already seeing
I think we're already there.
Yeah.
Golic
and Wingo.
and Wingo.
Mm-hmm. Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio and ESPN2 for the first 2 hours every morning. Presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike, it is time for Straight Talk. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Oh, and I'm not even talking about what happened with Clay Matthews. I just want you to know, as we were weaving our way through an intricate, layered, nuanced conversation about offense and defense in the NFL yesterday and in Monday night and what's going on and on all the specific things that we were trying to get to, I have 2 screens in front of me. My screen, which controls what I see, and the screen over there that comes from the control room and the things that they are doing to help us make sure the show stays on track. Mm-hmm. So as I'm looking at my screen, I see something scrolling over on my screen to my left. The control room has put in a Google search, what's the difference between ranch dressing and Thousand Island dressing? That's what they were doing while we were trying to figure
it. It was Russian dressing and Thousand Island dressing.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes do you know the difference?
I was just going to say, guy. Ranch and Thousand is a huge difference.
Does it matter? They were having a dressing discussion.
What is Russian dressing?
What is the difference?
The only difference that we can surmise so far is that, let me read it for you. The biggest difference is that Thousand Island dressings often include a finely chopped, hard-boiled egg.
And that's the Russian doesn't.
Correct.
I haven't seen at and I've been to my share of buffets. I haven't
seen. This is where we are.
It's according to ehow.com.
I haven't seen Russian dressing in a long time, though. I know it, and I'm with you because it looks like Thousand Island. I was always thought the same thing. What's the difference? Chopped up egg. Okay, that's good.
So that's where they were. And you want to explain why you went down this rabbit hole today, Stanzik?
Apparently something's trending on Twitter about mayo ketchup, and that's what is part of the ingredients.
Okay.
Oh, man. Thousand Island dressing takes me back. A good old Frisco melt from Steak and Shake.
Oh, yeah. Big
it's
fan.
Like 1,500 calories in one sandwich.
I'm a big fan of Thousand Island dressing.
God in heaven, is it a dream?
So just to recap, as we're trying to steer the ship here and make sure we're staying on point here, the room is looking for the iceberg that we can run into.
Yeah, there you go.
That's sort of the way. And that's Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE network.
Good find, though, guy.
Straight Talk, I'd drink good. Thousand Island dressing
Me
if
too.
you gave me the chance. That's
I'm with
Talk
you.
for you.
Love it.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
Now let's get back on track, shall we? Thus avoiding the iceberg planted in front of us by the show staff. Clay Matthews, of course, very controversial hit. You frothed at the mouth yesterday,
yes,
and rightfully so, I should point out, disagreeing with it. Well, the NFL thought so much, Mike, of your incredibly thoughtful, poignant, passionate point, they basically said, shut up, we're doubling down.
Yeah, basically what they're doing is they're saying they're using this video and sending it to teams like they do every week or every couple of weeks as far as a teaching point that this is not the way to do it, which blows my mind. There is a rule, though. Rule 12, Section 2, Article 9 of the NFL rulebook states that the technique of grabbing the passer from behind the legs, scooping and pulling in an upward motion is considered a foul. And they're saying that's what he did. Mike McCarthy, Clay Matthews' head coach, says, the goal is player safety. I think that's number one. Number two, it's to protect the quarterback. But also, I think you have to go further. I think anytime you have a desired result, there's a formula to get that result. You got to make sure you're looking at all the variables. I'm not sure all the variables are clear right now. So I understand that rule, and I read that rule, but I completely disagree that this rule applies in this hit.
Correct.
With the way the forward motion of Kirk Cousins throwing the ball, Clay Matthews tackled the quarterback the way the NFL is now wants youth football to tackle with heads up, to not use your helmet anymore, to wrap and to drive through a player to keep your feet going. He did all of that. And his right hand went around the waist of Kirk Cousins. His left hand went behind the leg because that's where he was in the body part of him. And his momentum of going one way, Kirk Cousins' momentum of throwing the other way. And then Clay tipped him and dropped him and put his hand out. I couldn't disagree more. And here's my thought. And listen, I'm not going to stop watching football. I'm not turning it off. The ratings aren't going to go down and all that. It's all fine, okay? I love the game and I'll always be part of the game. But I'll say this. For those that are involved in this, that looked at this and are now used as a teaching tape, if there's a group of people at the NFL where, and I get along with a lot of them, and it's not like a friendship ends with any of them either for this, I just disagree. For those that did not play football at a high level, I get it. You don't know.
Yeah.
In all honesty, you don't know. For those of you who are part of the league and are involved in this decision, who played meaningful football and looked at that play and agree that it was a foul, you're the ones I'm looking at right now and saying, you know what? You should, quite honestly, should be embarrassed. You should be embarrassed. That part of the game, you're fundamentally changing from what is a picture book tackle right now. So that would be my point. If you're at the league and you played meaningful football and you looked at that play and said it was wrong, that's who I have the biggest issue with, because you're the ones that could really supply the input that says, no, I get the safety. I get taking the head out of the game. I get all that stuff. Now we're protecting the quarterback. I get that. But again, to what end? That was a picture book tackle. If you're at the NFL, you played meaningful football, and you agree that was a foul, that's who I have the problem with.
I cannot disagree with you in any way, shape, or form. And last night on SportsCenter with Scott Van Pelt, the leading sacker in the NFL, Von Miller, was on, and he basically said, we're all trying to figure this out.
That's a tough one. Well, I mean, I understand what they're trying to do. The game is about the quarterback. We get that. You don't want to, get guys hurt. A couple of years ago when, Tom Brady tore his ACL from a low hit to the knee, they totally changed the rule. You can't hit quarterbacks below the knee anymore. Aaron Rodgers gets hurt last year from a guy landing on top of him. They totally changed the rules. So, I totally get it. It's about the quarterback. You want to keep the quarterback safe, but I'm not sure how we're supposed to, take him to the ground either.
See, here's the deal. First of all, Von Miller understands that it's not about him, yet he still found a way to get it done. But, Junior, I think that the NFL thinks everybody can do it Von Miller's way. Von Miller never tackles a guy and he ragdolls him. He's just so freakishly athletic. He does actually gently take the quarterback down almost every time. This just in. Not everybody can do it the way Von Miller is doing it.
Well, no, I think this is less about a lot of that, because Von Miller only proves that these guys are aware of why these things are happening.
Correct.
And they understand the value to their league. The difference is, and you mentioned what Mike McCarthy said, and I think that hit at the heart of this feels more like a missed opportunity for me. For a league that wants to certainly deter certain things, and deterrent and these rules we talked about have had an effect. You can see the hesitation in certain areas, but in addition to having things act as a deterrent, you also want to reinforce positive behavior. And like you said, so much of this embodies what you want out of new tackling in football that you had a chance to look and say, no, we got this wrong. This is exactly what we want. We want to reinforce that this is the type of behavior that helps, that creates the NFL that we all want to see. So that's the disappointing part, is you missed a chance to highlight something that's actually a result of all the work you've been doing.
That's a great point. That should be a highlight tape sent all the way down to youth football to say, This is where we are now, gang. No more head in the game, shoulder, drive through a man, wrap up.
Sadly, they're sending the tape around the other way saying this was the right call, which we completely 100% disagree with. All right, coming up, big news if you're going to be in the birthplace of America this weekend, like we will be on Friday.
Golic.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night, no doubt about it.
And Wingo.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Guys, let's be real. When you look good, you feel good. At the JCPenney wardrobe sale, you can get 50% off select men's suits, separate sport coats, dress pants, and accessories. Plus, select dress shirts, buy one, get one free. Raise your game with Collection by Michael Strahan. All the right looks to take your style to the next level. Also, save an extra 20% off with your JCPenney credit card and coupon, or extra 15% off with any other method of payment. Hurry in. JCPenney. Style and value for all. Pricing and coupon valid 9/13 and 9/23. Credit offer subject to credit approval. Some exclusions and restrictions apply. See store at jcp.com for coupon and details.
Love scoring amazing hotel deals? Then you've got to use Hotel Tonight. Forget scrolling through never-ending lists of hotels. Hotel Tonight shows you a select list of incredible deals at hotels you actually want to stay at. And even though the name's Hotel Tonight, you can actually book these sweet deals in advance for tonight, tomorrow, and beyond. Want to get those deals? Yeah, you do. Something better just came along. Hotel Tonight.
Paul Finebaum now joins us from the Paul Finebaum Show on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Paul, thanks for being with us. And again, we're sort of in this never-ending cycle of Urban Meyer wanting to do an interview, does an interview, then he doesn't like the way it goes, so he has to release a statement after the interview. It just seems at some point he needs to stop talking and say, I just need to move on from this here.
Well, I think that time has finally arrived, that he'll be coaching a game this week, assuming you call coaching against Tulane a real game. But it has really been just embarrassing to watch one of the great coaches in modern college football history continue just to fall all over himself. And I don't know what he got out of this latest interview with Tom Rinaldi other than just to appear more awkward. Now, I will say one thing. He did give a news conference yesterday for an hour, so after keeping him under wraps for a long time, he answered questions. Now, he answered them poorly. He parsed words like he was about to appear in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, but at least he did it. And I don't know if anything has changed over the last 3 days other than the people that already thought Urban Meyer was lying and misleading, think that even more, and the fans in Columbus believe in him no matter what he says. So at the end of this long 48 hours, it was a wash.
And I think as we all know, we've all experienced now that he's back on the sideline, and this is somewhat a bit getting pushed behind him. It is just going to go to football now to see where Ohio State goes. And we know they're a winning program, and it's going to concentrate on football. That's just kind of what time is going to do. So we'll see where it goes. You mentioned Tulane. I think Nick Bosa is out this game. He got a little nicked up in the last game. But Paul, as far as on the field, man, that LSU Auburn game, did that live up? And we had Ed Orgeron on yesterday, and for that team to be down 21-10 in the third quarter and come back and win it, what do you say about this LSU team going forward?
They are easily the most, forget surprising, how about shocking team in the country for the first 3 weeks. And this is a team that Vegas had winning about 6 games. This is a coach that was number one on everyone's hot seat list, with the scenario being lose to Miami, lose to Auburn, and maybe get fired like Les Miles did 2 years ago. So I mean, you gotta love this guy, and you guys know him and talk to him, and I mean, he's just the all-American dream of somebody who never had a chance to be a head coach on a major school. He got the opportunity, he failed. He was the interim coach at SC. Probably should have gotten the job now that we see what's happened out there, and he's in trouble at LSU, and now he's again, 3 weeks is only 3 weeks, but no one's done a better job in the SEC this year.
Well, it is only 3 weeks, as this college football talk is brought to you by Dr. Pepper. Get to your local Walmart today and grab some delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper, the official drink of Fansville, now playing everywhere college football games are played. It is only 3 weeks, but it's historically been an unbelievable 3 weeks. The first time in, 37 years that in your first 3 games you beat 2 top 10 opponents when they were ranked at that time. So, yes, it's 3 games, but it's been a pretty spectacular 3 games so far for LSU and Ed Orgeron. It's been a spectacularly bad first 3 games for Willie Taggart at Florida State. Is there hope, or is this what we're going to see for the Seminoles for the rest of this season?
Yeah, I can't imagine it's going to change much. And I think what happens is he's got to fight off just an almost instant analysis that he's not going to make it, which I think is really not fair. And as someone who swims in the toxic waters of coaching controversies, he has to just somehow get people to believe in him. And it's hard to do considering that he's changed jobs so frequently and has really not established himself as a successful big-time Power 5 coach. So in watching his team play this year, they look poorly coached. They don't look motivated. They look out of position. They just look like they don't know where they are, which ultimately is a reflection on him. Now Jimbo Fisher out in College Station clocking in at $7 million a year is going, that's not my problem anymore. And now maybe you do understand a little bit more why he bailed out. But that's always the game, guys. Whenever a coach leaves, it's convenient to blame the previous coach. And in this case, I'm sure Jimbo deserves some of the criticism. But this is Willie Taggart's program, and they just look downright awful.
And quickly on the other side, I'm a big Dino Babers fan. I love what he's doing at Syracuse. They're 3-0 right now. UConn this week, and then they have a game against Clemson. So we'll see what goes on there. But let's see if he has that program turned around. Speaking of a game coming up this weekend, we're talking again to Paul Finebaum, SEC Network, the Paul Finebaum Show. Also, his show 3 to 7 on ESPN Radio and the SEC Network. SEC Nation going to be in Tuscaloosa. Alabama against A&M. One of the things we discuss every week, Paul, is Alabama going to lose this week. Can somebody give them a game this week? A&M only has 1 loss, and they had a shot to beat number 2 Clemson. They didn't pull it off, but what a game that was. So now they're going into Tuscaloosa, another protege of Nick Saban in this one, who none of his former assistants have beaten him yet. Do we give A&M a chance in this?
No, I don't. And as impressed as everyone was with what they did against Clemson, that game was at home. That was a unique situation. And, you hate to say, and before the first day of fall, that there's nobody out there that can beat Alabama, but that's what is being said. And I've heard it been said before, and it didn't turn out to be true. So you do have to be careful, but I just don't see this matchup favoring A&M in any way. I mean, Alabama's offense is just in a position now that I don't think I've ever seen an Alabama team play at, and it is because of Tua. It's not only because of him, but he's so effective. He's so lethal in passing the football. They have so many weapons that it would just take an extraordinary set of circumstances to see Alabama lose a game like this. Now, I was in Oxford the other day, and there were people in our business who said, "Hey, watch out! This could be an upset." And after about 10 seconds, it looked like maybe it would be when Ole Miss scored on the first play. But after that, they never. I'm not sure that they clocked more than 5 first downs. So I just think I think Saban has got this team clicking. It's a little hard to tell defensively because even though Ole Miss was a pretty potent offense, they'll be tested this week. But the line's sitting at 24, and I think Vegas is being very generous.
Well, they are being generous. Paul Finebaum was with us again. The first 3 games for Alabama: 51-14, 57-7, and 62-7. No one wants to, as you said, allude to the fact that before we get to the what is it, autumnal equinox, for lack of a better term, that we know how this is going to end up. But where do you see at this point? It's fair. Nick Saban's going to hate that we bring this up. He's going to call it the rat poison and all that garbage. But let's be honest about it. Where is the game that someone's going to give Alabama? Where is that game?
Well, it will be a while. I mean, if you start ranking the games where difficulty lies, you have to. The first time I would be able to come up with one would be at LSU in early November. And I say that because that's a game Saban usually plays very tight. Remember, he coached there. He won a championship there. And if LSU is still rolling, the atmosphere at night will be very difficult. And I've seen Alabama teams struggle there. And then it's all about November. It's LSU. It's a home game against Mississippi State, which is very good, and then a home game against Auburn, which we know, and then it's Georgia, likely in the SEC title game. So if you're an Alabama worrywart, you basically have about 2 months to go on vacation and enjoy the beauty of the fall, because you're not going to see any close games. And listen, even in the 3 regular season games, I don't see anyone coming very close. Georgia, I do think is an equal, not an equal match, but certainly a match. And then you get into the playoff. And what I've seen so far, and it's limited, Ohio State looks like the greatest challenger at Alabama right now.
And speaking of Ohio State, speaking of that conference, boy, oh boy, Paul, did they take a hit this past weekend?
Yeah, and Mike, I mean, this has been a continuum for the last couple of weeks. Every week, a Big Ten team has blown a game somewhere, and this week they just seem to blow it everywhere. I think that's problematic for Ohio State. Should they go to Happy Valley in a couple of weeks and drop that game, which is entirely possible. But even then, I think they could probably make it all the way back. Wisconsin losing hurts everyone on the east side, because that was going to be the bellwether game. But again, we act like nothing ever happens surprising in college football, and last week pretty much everything happened on what looked like the sleepiest college football weekend of the year. It turned out to be dramatic.
It certainly was. And, I ask you this every week, and the prop bet is if you're going to take Alabama, Georgia, and Clemson in the 3, I'll move it up 1. Are you taking Alabama right now as the team that's going to walk away with it yet again based on what we've seen so far?
I should know better than to say yes, because when Alabama is supposed to win, they usually don't. But I will, because you could be a moderately rich man if you go back to 2009 and just pick Alabama to win the national championship every year. By the way, I have done that, and I've got probably a better batting average than anyone else in the country trying to be cute and go with Wisconsin and be out of it by the middle of September.
Paul, let's go out to the West Coast. I mean, already for Chip Kelly. UCLA 0-3, and for some reason, a dad decided to hit send. Oh. The father of their quarterback criticized Chip Kelly on social media, writing that Kelly is a $1 million coach who bears no responsibility for the team's 0-3 start. How surprised are you that Chip Kelly started out this bad?
I'm pretty surprised, because I mean there were Oklahoma was not going to be a win, but he's had he should be 2-1. There is a curve, and I think sometimes you go into a program and you maybe try to reset it too much. But I will point. I just got through praising Saban's program. He was 6-6 in the regular season. His first year at Alabama, his team lost to Louisiana Monroe. These things do happen, so you have to decide what to do. Do you want to try to cut corners or build a program? I'd rather see a coach build a program, but the idea of a father criticizing the coach is getting really on my nerves. I realize everyone's got a phone and everyone wants to speak out, but come on. Jalen Hurts' father got his son in hot water a couple of months ago by declaring him the greatest free agent. Now you have this situation out in L.A., and I just fathers follow the same lessons that you give to your sons, and quit making fools out of yourself, which I think this guy did.
Completely agree.
Listen,
agree.
Take Herm Edwards' advice.
Don't press in.
Yep.
There you go. Very simple.
That's it.
And by the way, big game for Herm this weekend after a stumble.
We'll talk about that in a sec. Yeah,
we'll talk about that in a second. All right, Paul, we appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Paul.
Pleasure, guys. See you next week.
Golic and Wingo.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold.
It's very interesting where that went.
Bologna, a lunch meat, a bologna sandwich. Bologna, nonsensical talk, a bunch of bologna. So there's 2 definitions.
My bologna has a first name, it's O-S-C-A-R. My bologna has a second name, it's M-A-Y-E-R. Oh, I love to eat it every day, and if you ask me why, I'll say, 'cause Oscar Mayer has a way with B-O-L-O-G-N-A.
Every time.
Love it. Like, need more jingles.
Every time.
Jingles need to come.
Jingles are critical.
Yep.
Everybody in their childhood grew up with jingles.
Had a jingle.
That sticks with them. So, in fact, that may be the next iceberg we'll put in the show's way. What was your favorite childhood jingle?
I definitely have a few right off. We got to say, that's a good one. That is a good one.
Very good one. We'll get to this. All right, Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. All phone guests join us on the Chel Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike, there is a very interesting story on ESPN.com. Arash Markazi, an ESPN senior writer, has gotten a letter sent to NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, Executive Director DeMaurice Smith, and President of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, David Baker, Tuesday, basically saying many high-profile Pro Football Hall of Famers say they will not attend the annual Hall of Fame induction ceremony until Hall of Famers receive health insurance and an annual salary that includes a share of the league revenue. The letter was sent by Eric Dickerson, the chairman of the newly created Hall of Fame board, and signed by members like Marcus Allen, Mel Blount, Derek Brooks, Jim Brown, Earl Campbell, Richard Dent, Carl Eller, Marshall Faulk, Mike Haynes, Ricky Jackson, Ronnie Lott, Joe Namath, John Randall, Jerry Rice, Deion Sanders, Lawrence Taylor, Kurt Warner, and Sarah White, Reggie White's widow. Basically, they're saying, we have built this game, we have sacrificed our bodies, and so what we want is the idea that we're out there and living this great life. It isn't really true. People know us from our highlight reels. They're so honored and they think our life is great. We're mythologized, but on balance, it's not. As a group, we are struggling with severe health and financial problems. To build this game up, we sacrificed our bodies, health insurance, and an annual salary for all Hall of Famers that includes a share of league revenue. There's a lot to get into here. Your initial thoughts?
Well, my initial thought is let's first start with I have an issue with their salaries, and I'll get to that. But the important thing I think is health care. And I do agree with longer health care for athletes.
For those that don't understand in the NFL, your health insurance as an NFL player runs out when? 5
years.
After you've played.
After you've played, and then it runs out. And, you know, again, in the latest contract with Roger Goodell that he signed, what's one of the things he got?
He has lifetime health insurance.
And listen, more power to him. That's fine for negotiating that in. I mean, that's great. But, you know, a lot of guys out there putting a lot on the line that it runs out. So if that, and they actually figured out a number to that of what it would cost. They said the letter outlines that the total cost of every Hall of Famer to have health insurance is less than $4 million, which is less than that of a 30-second Super Bowl ad or about 3 cents for every $100 a league generates in revenue. So let me get to the Hall of Fame part as well. But that for players and health insurance, to me, when you start talking about redoing the deal in 2021, the CBA, that should be, forget these for a moment, the Hall of Famers. This should be something that the players it's worth fighting for, because that's for everybody. And that's what you're talking about in the CBA. You want to fight for things that are for the majority. And health insurance post-career is a monster thing. And it's gotten better over the years, but it can get even better.
Absolutely.
And lifetime or at least a longer stretch would absolutely be one of them. The one I have an issue with is saying you want a salary. Did you find out how many Hall of Famers do we have? The actual number?
It's 300
something. 300 and something Hall of Famers, and they're specifically saying that the Hall of Famers get health insurance for life and an annual salary because of what they give into the game. What I would say to each and every one of those Hall of Famers, unless I'm reading this wrong, is, well, there are 300 and some of you that are greatest to ever play this game. There are more of me than you. And I'm not saying me specifically, give me this.
A guy who played multiple years in the league, also put his body in the line.
Thousands upon thousands of players who played just as long as you Hall of Famers. We weren't as good. I will readily agree with that. We weren't as good. But, you know, my 9 years and 12 surgeries mean something.
Yep.
Okay?
Mark Schlereth's 29 surgeries in 12 years means something.
We're not in the Hall of Fame, and we won't be. And there's a lot of guys like us. So this kind of reminds me when I was playing at the quarterback club. You know, where all the top quarterbacks got together, had kind of their own club, did their own thing for their own money, which, again, you know, if you want to do, you want to do. But that part of it, I'm not going to lie. And I'd love to get one of these guys on here, and maybe there's more to that.
Sure.
Because I would love to find out. But you're kind of saying, hey, just for us, we want this health insurance and a salary. Forget about the other thousands and thousands of guys that, oh, by the way, we were teammates with
that blocked
a lot of these players.
And did a lot of things that allowed you to be
and or played against a lot of these guys. So that one rubs me the wrong way a little bit.
I can understand that.
Not going to lie. The health insurance, that not only needs to be the Hall of Famers, that needs to be negotiated better for former players.
Absolutely 100%. And here's the issue, though, because when these CBAs are done, most of these guys are 23, 24,
right. They're not thinking of that.
They still believe that they're bulletproof, and they'll play for 10, 11 more years.
You're correct.
For the most important thing for the negotiators to get them to see the bigger picture and the long-term window is sometimes the hardest thing in this. But I agree with you 100%.
Golic and Wingo.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
It's time to join the millions of people that meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Zoom gives you flawless video, crystal clear audio, and instant sharing across any mobile, tablet, or desktop device. But the best thing about Zoom? It just works. So ditch the distractions, join the movement, and meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Visit Zoom.us to set up your free account today. That's Zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing. Technology powers your business, and technology changes. But chances are you're still using video conferencing that was wow 10 years ago, but feels more like whoa today. Ditch the choppy video and crappy audio and get back to wow with Zoom. It's the easiest, most reliable video collaboration suite, and it costs about a third of what you're probably paying now. Wow, not whoa. Visit Zoom.us to set up a free account today. That's Zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing.
Joe Thomas joins us on the phone. Joe, how are we in Cleveland this morning? Once again, it was close, but no cigar for the Brownies to end that 19-game winless streak.
Well, I'm licking my wounds this morning, but I'm starting to feel a little bit better because we've got the New York Jets coming to town on Thursday Night Football in Cleveland Browns Stadium. Life is going to be good on Thursday night. I really believe.
What are you seeing? Let's start first with the positive. What are you seeing as the best positives for this team right now?
Well, the big thing that sticks out that anybody watches the game can see is how great that defense is playing. That defense flies all over the field and has been getting turnovers at an unprecedented rate right now. They're also one of the youngest defenses in the league. So if you've got a core group of really young, really talented defenders, I think back to a team like the Seattle Seahawks a few years ago who were able to kind of ride that core group of great young defenders to a Super Bowl and a couple more appearances. And I'm really hoping that the Browns are kind of on that path right now, especially because they got a guy named Baker Mayfield that looks like he could be the guy a few years down the line.
Well, Joe Thomas is with us. Look, let's talk about that. It was a rough performance week one for Tyrod Taylor. Really, really low completion percentage, but he came back and played pretty well outside of that late interception when they had the lead and they're trying to work the clock. He comes back and puts them back in the game with the huge pass to Antonio Callaway. Where are we on Baker Mayfield, maybe sooner rather than later, perhaps taking over under center?
Well, I think that right now the people in Cleveland still have a good resolve to keep Baker on the bench right now. Let him continue to learn. Let him continue to grow by watching. And don't put him out there too soon before he's ready to play. And I think right now they firmly believe that Tyrod is the best man for the job. He gives this team the best chance to win right now. And in addition, the best thing for Baker Mayfield is to sit and watch and not get out there too soon where you have an opportunity to make some mistakes and lose confidence. And I think Pro Football Talk actually wrote a really good article about Patrick Mahomes and how great and valuable it was for him last year to sit and watch and learn under Alex Smith. And I'm really thinking that this situation is analogous in Cleveland right now with Tyrod Taylor and Baker Mayfield.
Joe Thomas joining us, former left tackle of the Cleveland Browns, 10-time Pro Bowler, walks into the Hall of Fame as soon as he's eligible. We'll get to what's going on with some of your future teammates in the Hall of Fame in a little bit. I know you didn't get a chance to completely read the article, but we'll talk about it in a little bit. One more on the Browns. I don't want to get around the league a little bit. Do you think it was the right move for the Cleveland Browns to part ways with Josh Gordon?
I think so. I think there's a point with any player, no matter how cheap and how talented he is. And Josh is as cheap as any receiver in the league, and he's as talented as any receiver in the league. But there becomes a point when you've just run out of chances, and you just need a fresh start for Josh and for the Browns, because this Josh Gordon cloud has kind of been hanging over the organization for so many years, and it's just never clicked here. And I think you just got to realize at some point that it's just not going to work, and you got to make it somebody else's problem.
Yeah, and again, to that point, just how we know the problems he's had, but how talented he is. A few years ago, he was suspended for the first 2 games of the season, and I believe his quarterbacks that year were Brian Hoyer, Jason Campbell, and Brandon Whedon. And he led the league in receiving yards.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when he is on his game. That's how good he can be, and that's why the risk is worth what minimal risk the Patriots had in this, Mike, is worth a very potential high reward going forward for Josh Gordon in New England. Okay, then listen, one more thing. I promise we'll move on around the league. One more thing about Cleveland. That game was just I don't know how to describe it. I ran over the last 2 minutes, Joe. I didn't play in Cleveland. I haven't grown up a Cleveland fan. I was riding the roller coaster of emotions, and then to see what happened with Zane Gonzalez. I mean, it just, I got to say, Cleveland fans have to be the most durable fan base in America right now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of empathy around the league right now for Browns players, the team, and the fans, because they see how passionate the fan base is. They see this team is getting better. Everyone sees that they're in these games, but they just haven't been able to pull it together. And in the way and the fashion that they're losing these games at the end, it's just heartbreaking. And I think the Browns are almost becoming America's lovable losers right now because of the closeness that they're in these games right now towards the end and the lack of success that they've had for the last couple of years. And I think Hard Knocks had a little bit of a part in that because people got to see the personalities and really got to fall in love with a lot of these guys. And now everybody's kind of cheering for them to be able to turn the corner, and to lose it on a couple kicks is just a heartbreaker.
10-time Pro Bowler Joe Thomas joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, as he will every week. Joe, you're not too far removed from being in the locker room. Vontae Davis quit on his team, in my opinion, retired at halftime of the Buffalo Bills game. I'm wondering, again, you're not too far removed for this, what your reaction would have been had a player retired and walked out on the team at halftime of a game.
This was the most bizarre story of the week. I just can't even wrap my mind around what happened. And, he wants to frame it that he retired or whatever. But, you basically just quit at halftime. And I'm trying to still figure out if he gave some type of Braveheart speech at halftime and he called the team up and talked about how he was going to retire and he just couldn't do it anymore. Or if he snuck into the locker room a few minutes before halftime, grabbed his stuff, took his shower pill and hit the locker room or hit the parking lot, checked out before the rest of the team got into the halftime. And I've got a sneaking suspicion that he snuck out of there before the rest of the team was even in there, and nobody even realized what was going on. Because can you imagine, Golic, if a guy came up to you at halftime and said, "Hey, man, I just can't do it anymore"? Do you think you would have been thinking that he was meaning he's retiring, or do you think he meant that maybe his hamstring hurt and he just didn't feel like playing in the second half?
I would have been so blown away, Joe, to not know what to believe. And, oh, by the way, he didn't tell anybody because all the players after the game said they kind of found out when they went on the field in the second half. So it sounds like he did kind of sneak in, do the shower pill. For those that don't know, that means,
yes,
you basically don't shower. And you just put your clothes on and you leave. So and then he had this unbelievable statement afterward that if he did on Monday and played the rest of the game, everybody would have said, wow, here's a guy who gave his all and just can't do it anymore. But, man, not at halftime of a game, not in one of the most team aspect sports there is out there to just walk out on your brothers.
Yeah, think about what you put your body through to get to the NFL, not necessarily even what he's done over 10 years in the NFL. He's put his body through hell and back. And to not be able to go through another hour of football, that's just unbelievable to me to think where his mind was at that halftime, to think that just walking out into the parking lot and leaving the game was the right decision. It's something I can't even comprehend, but maybe he was thinking ahead. Maybe we need to give him credit for how smart he is, because now pulling a Vontae Davis is something that's going to be in the dictionary for years to come.
He's a verb now. There's no question. He Vontae'd, no question. 30 snaps. Really, at the most, he needed 30 more snaps, and he decided to check out. Whatever, we'll move on. Joe Thomas is with us, 10-time Pro Bowler, walking into the Hall of Fame in 5 years. Joe, we've spent a lot of time over the last 2 mornings talking about some of the flags for hitting the quarterback and the way they're being called. And it's not just us. 2 former heads of the NFL officiating, Dean Blandino and Mike Pereira, have gone on and said that the flags against Eric Kendricks of the Minnesota Vikings, which led to a Packers field goal Sunday, and the hit by Clay Matthews on Kirk Cousins, which negated a game-winning interception in the fourth quarter, where he was called for roughing the quarterback, should not be fouls. Those are not the fouls they're trying to get rid of or the plays they're trying to get rid of in the NFL right now. You are a guy whose lifeblood was protecting your quarterback. What did you think of those hits and whether or not either one of them should have been flagged?
Well, I made my money protecting the quarterback. So naturally, I'm a little bit biased, and I say I want to protect the quarterback. I think a lot of these rules are good. I think the game overwhelmingly is popular because of the quarterback play, and that's why people are tuning in right now. They want to see Aaron Rodgers go against Tom Brady. So it's important that these guys are in the game and they're not getting beaten to a pulp by these much larger, much stronger men that are running around. I mean, let's be honest. Tom Brady's 218 pounds, and he doesn't have a lot of muscle on his body. He can't protect himself, especially at that quarterback position, the way a big receiver or a big tight end can. So we need to protect him. But with that being said, the way the rule is written right now with this unnecessary roughness on the quarterback is clearly too difficult and too nuanced for NFL referees to be able to call at full game speed. And so the NFL needs to immediately enact something like the college system where they have a referee either in the booth or in New York that's watching the game that can call down immediately after one of these are called and wave it off if it was something that was not egregious, if it was not to the letter of the law the way it was intended. Because right now we've had several games that have hinged on the outcome of incorrectly called unnecessary roughness on the quarterback, specifically the Clay Matthews hit last weekend. And then a couple weeks ago, Myles Garrett on Ben Roethlisberger. And that's inexcusable in the National Football League.
And I normally have been one, Joe, to not want to add more review to maybe slow down a game more. But given the circumstances out there, I think I would agree with you on this. That being said, let's go to a bigger issue about that. The league did review the Clay Matthews hit. Not only did they stand by that call, they said they are using that tape and sending it out to other teams around the league as ways to not hit the quarterback. So to me, now it becomes a bigger problem when you're saying a guy that uses his shoulder, drives through the stomach of a ball carrier, runs through him, drives through him, and takes him to the ground is now wrong. So that to me now, Joe, is part of a bigger problem that they have looked at that and they still say it was wrong.
I'm stumped. I have absolutely no idea how Clay Matthews was supposed to hit that quarterback without getting a penalty. If he hits him higher and he lifts his head up, right? So he's going in, instead of hitting him with his shoulder, if he lifts his head up, he's going to hit him in the face or the chin or the neck area, which is a penalty. If he goes lower, he's hitting him below the waist, which is a penalty. So basically he has hit him perfectly with his head to the side in the target area that the NFL has allowed. He's not lifted. He's not landed his body weight on him. I have no idea and no concept how the NFL could say that was a penalty and that's how you shouldn't hit a quarterback. I would love to have whoever's writing these rules and saying that that's a penalty come out and say what Clay Matthews could have done in that situation to avoid a penalty.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Outside of maybe, getting a nice down feather bed for him, I'm not sure what else Clay Matthews could have done.
They're saying basically you can't lift the quarterback, which is ridiculous because the quarterback, if you watch when he threw the ball, he was actually in the air already. Yeah. And Clay just drove through him, and the momentum of the quarterback going forward and Clay going the other way took him in the air. It's a joke. Yeah. And I'm with you. And we're going to try, obviously, to get somebody on from the league and explain that a little better to us because I haven't met one person yet outside of the league that agrees that was a bad hit.
And again, two former heads of NFL officiating think those are not the calls we're trying to make. Joe Thomas with us, 10-time Pro Bowler, who, again, he probably doesn't like to hear this, but is walking into the Hall of Fame in 5 years. So, Joe, there's a story out there now that we find very interesting, and we'd like to get your take on it. ESPN has obtained a letter sent to NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, the NFL Players Executive Director DeMaurice Smith, and President of the Pro Football Hall of Fame David Baker, basically signed by many high-profile Hall of Famers, saying, we, the undersigned Pro Football Hall of Famers, were integral to the creation of the modern NFL, which in 2017 generated $14 billion in revenue. But when the league enshrined us as the greatest players ever, they gave us a bust and a ring, and that's it. They're asking for lifetime health insurance as well as a salary for being those players that helped build the league. Look, there's a lot to get into there, and Mike and I have our opinions on this, but what is your take on the Hall of Famers specifically alone asking for lifetime health insurance and a salary?
Yeah, this is really interesting, and the first I heard about it was when I called in and was talking to the producer. And so I really don't know what to make of it right now. I know that former players, specifically some of the older former players, for years have been pushing for more money. They want, a bigger cut of every new CBA, and they've been getting it. But as is human nature, they're going to continue to want even bigger cuts. Additionally, they would like lifetime health insurance. And that's something all players have been pushing for, right? Because of the wear and tear that this game takes on your body, your brain specifically. Lifetime medical would be clearly something that would be enormously beneficial. And I could see there's a really good argument that the NFL owners and the people that are in charge of the NFL would want their former players to be in good health. It's good business, right? I mean, these are sort of the guys that are marketing and doing great things for your brand off the field, even though that they are retired. And so there's an argument for some lifetime medical there. And I guess it's all going to come down to the minutia, and in any negotiation, it's leverage.
Yeah, listen, I completely agree, and hopefully the terms will get better. I guess from my point, Joe, is you're soon going to be in this club. I'm never going to be in this club. There are 318 Hall of Famers, and there are thousands upon thousands of guys who played just as long as the Hall of Famers, went through just what they did. And it seems now, I harken back to my days when there was a quarterback club, when all the quarterbacks kind of did things for themselves. I kind of think to myself, wait a minute, the Hall of Famers are trying to separate themselves from everybody else, the foot soldiers, the me's of the league, and get health insurance for themselves and money for themselves. I'm not going to lie, that part of it does rub me the wrong way.
Yeah, I could definitely see how if you were one of the guys that has been retired, 20, 30 years, and you see all of a sudden your buddies that were your brothers that you kind of figured were in this with you, fighting the owners and trying to get more money in healthcare, all of a sudden have separated themselves and looked at it as, hey, we're going to have a better chance of getting this if we separate ourselves and make this exclusive club, because obviously it always comes down to money. You only have so much money to split up. And so if you make yourself a smaller group, you're more likely to be able to get a little bit of the pie because it's a smaller pie that you're asking for. So obviously this is an interesting tactic, and it does kind of create an us versus them mentality, which can be very dangerous. And there's probably going to be some hard feelings definitely between the guys that are in the Hall of Fame and some of the guys that have been fighting for these same things for many, many years that aren't in the Hall of Fame.
So away from that, in the more general topic of when the next CBA negotiation comes up, if you were able to get in front of these players who, as Trey mentioned, he's right, a lot of them in their early 20s, mid-20s, late 20s think they're going to still play forever.
Correct.
What advice would you give them about fighting for more post-career things as opposed to things going on while they're playing?
Well, it's a delicate balance because everything that you get post-career is something that you're going to give up now. So I think you just got to find whatever is the appropriate balance that balances the money now versus helping everyone as a whole, as a collective, as the union down the line. And, I'm not in that position anymore to make that judgment call because I'm not in the NFL and I'm not in the union anymore. But clearly I think those people are making those balances and they're trying to get more benefits, specifically health benefits, long term, because a lot of times that's what making these older retired players go broke is because they just physically can't afford these astronomical healthcare costs from the wear and tear that football has taken on their bodies.
Listen, everybody should get lifetime health care, and if that's played in the NFL, I don't know if it's ever going to come to that.
Don't know, at least longer than what it is. I mean, ask
5
for
years,
everything and maybe get
most
more.
of your problems come well after you stop playing 5 years in the league. Joe Thomas, you're with us every week. We love you as a guest.
We don't have.
Yeah, exactly.
It's drinking.
Yes, you brought us food last week, and you showered us with beer this morning. Tell us a little bit about your beer.
So it's the greatest beer that's ever been brewed, going all the way back through German times. It's called 73 Beer, 73 Kolsch. It's Great Lakes Brewing's finest beer that they've ever created. Unfortunately, they only made about 100,000 cases, and we're almost all the way through it. But I was able to save a little bit for my good friends Golic and Wingo because I know their Tuesday ritual, right when they get off the air, is to shotgun a beer. So what better beer to shotgun than 73 Kolsch?
It's actually a ritual for days that end in Y, but
yes.
And today happens to be one of them, so that's exactly what's going to happen in about 40 minutes.
Or sometimes days that end in AY.
There you go.
One of those twos is our parameters when we do that. Joe, you're the best.
Thanks, Joe. We appreciate it very much, man.
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or just ask your smart speaker to play Golic and Wingo. Plus, you can check the guys out live weekday mornings from 6 to 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN News.
When it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need help getting to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. And when you need to hire fast, accelerate your results with sponsored jobs. New users can try for free at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.